Hey, everybody. I hope everybody is having an amazing Saturday, an amazing week. I am your host, Felicia Breggy, and thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Positive Tea with Me. This has been an absolutely wonderful week for me. As a lot of you know, on Thursday, I turned 40. And so I am still extremely happy about that, extremely excited, extremely blessed. There's a lot of water under the bridge at this point, and it's a different decade of my life. And it's so exciting because although every single decade of our lives is super important and super vital in this thing that we call life and fulfilling our purpose. For me personally, the decade of age 30 to age 40 was so vital to the rest of my life. I went through the most changes during that time of my life. I learned the most about myself. I accomplished the most. And it was just a very intense time because this was the decade, or should I say that at this point, was the decade of self development. And we talk so much on Positive Tea with Tea about how important that is and how it's just really made a difference for me in my life. And so it was just, so humbling and so, I think, necessary for me to really celebrate that was what it was, and to just be thankful for all the mountains that I've climbed and all the challenges and the victories, because it's going to really be beneficial in my next 40 years. So thank you all for tuning in tonight. I'm blessed to be here, blessed to be 40. So I really chose self-love tips for 2022 for this episode, especially because it is so important for a lot of the listeners and individuals that I come into contact with to really understand the importance of that to me and how it's just been so beneficial. So thanks again for tuning in, and I hope that my story and my tips will inspire you. So with that being said, the first area that I want to dive into this evening when it comes to self-love is going to be comfort versus discomfort. That is such a necessary topic in this journey because so many times in our lives, we don't realize that things that we are normally doing, things that we're used to doing, things that we've always done, that comfortable side of us is not an area that exhibits or encourages self-confidence. And so it is very important for us to have comfort, but just as important as it is for us to be comfortable in our lives, it's just as important to be uncomfortable. And what I mean is, in loving yourself and feeling that you are important, that you have a place, you have a purpose, that does come hand in hand with getting uncomfortable. And the reason that it makes you uncomfortable is, me personally, when I was at the point of my life where I was ready to change the habits that were no longer serving me in walking in my purpose, or in being the best Felicia that I could be. It was uncomfortable. A lot of times we don't realize that being uncomfortable doesn't necessarily mean it's something negative. Being uncomfortable could mean something positive that you're not used to. And so you have to get out of your comfort zone enough to reach your goal, enough to fulfill your purpose. So getting out of your comfort zone is going to be different for me than it is for you. Getting out of my comfort zone might be waking up at 5 o'clock. Getting out of your comfort zone might be waking up at 8 o'clock. Each individual has a comfort zone, and each individual has to stay in that comfort zone somewhat to continue to be successful in life. But each individual must also get out of their comfort zone in order to reach their goals. And there has to be balance with the two of those because they are both absolutely necessary for us to continue to be purposeful and successful in our lives. And it's a choice that you make. 21 days to form a habit. That's something that I try to live by. That 3 weeks that it takes you to realize a different way of doing things. And so when the 21 days is up, I found that it's usually a little bit easier. But depending on what habits we're trying to break and what part of our comfort zone that we need to get out of is going to depend on what difference it will make in the 3 weeks. In that 21 days, those are going to be different for each individual. The balance level is going to be different. The habitual reasoning with yourself and the perception is going to be different. And that's just the nature of it. And so for each individual, it's going to take a lot of searching to understand that level, that balance of the two. You need them both. You need to be comfortable in understanding yourself. You need to be comfortable in making commitments to yourself. You need to be comfortable in loving yourself, being realistic. You need to be comfortable in only doing things that serve you in a positive light, only doing things that move you closer to your purpose. But you need to be in a state of discomfort in order to change things that are holding you back, in order to let go of the things that no longer serve you. You need to experience discomfort to be able to look at yourself from a different perspective and be able to say, although this is not for me, this career, this area of management in the company I work for, this area of management in my life is not for me. But you have to stay in a state of discomfort to continue to habitually go after the things that you need to change in your perceptive pattern of balance when it comes to reaching your goals. You have to do what you have to do. And it's going to be completely different than anything that you've done before. And that's where the discomfort comes in. It's not about feeding yourself, things that are unrealistic. It's not about feeding your self-worth with things that are just not for you, pipe dreams. It's about still being realistic, but understanding that you're going to have a completely different relationship with yourself when it comes to certain things that are no longer serving your self-confidence, serving your self-worth, making you feel like a person who's worth it. You've got to get uncomfortable. You've got to get uncomfortable. And you've got to relearn yourself. And you've got to be okay with saying, this time, I am going to put me first. The next thing that we're going to talk about when it comes to self-love is quality versus quantity. And that can be applied to so many things in life. It's a key way to love yourself and understanding when those two meet, but when those two contrast. We need to understand that the confidence that we have is so important. It's okay to, be able to put things in their place and to be humble, but you still have to master the art of loving you. And that means that it's okay to get to the point where you go from 20 people who have access to you personally and have access to you regularly, and you go down to 7 people. That's okay. It's okay to be able to spend time alone. Sometimes the person that you need to spend time with the most is yourself. And in spending time with yourself and not spending so much time with others, you're able to understand yourself. You're able to accept the fact that there are things that are just for you. In your period of self-development, there's going to be times where you have to shut the world out. And this does not necessarily mean that you don't have friends. A lot of social media today, we live in the age of the unbothered, I say, and I quote, or it's just a period where a lot of people look at independence as a weapon, or they look at, I say, and I quote, the haters as something they wear. I don't give that a lot of thought or discussion in anything I do. But I will say that there's real friends out there who may criticize you. Constructive criticism is necessary. So I'm not saying that any negative feedback is not welcome. We have to have some things that is not our way of thinking in one sense or another in order to see things from more than one perspective. And so when it comes to quality versus quantity, when it comes to friendship and other human beings being a part of our lives, sometimes quality, that is going to be in those who challenge our way of thinking. And you have to eat the meat, spit out the bones, contain what you need and disregard what you don't. And to be honest with you, that's going to be that way in life. The quality of an opposing thought is okay. It's okay to question what you feel. And that actually makes your self-confidence and your self-love stronger. When whatever you believe is questioned, not even necessarily by a person, but by another source of information, a book, a website, a blog, or, a live, workshop, or anything that's opposing what you feel, you are able to analyze that, if not for a moment. And so with that being said, when you're still able to analyze the opposing thought, the opposing perspective, and still hold true to your beliefs and what you consider the way to approach something, that actually enhances the quality of your thoughts. So stop second guessing yourself. The quality of what you think versus the quantity of opposing thoughts, if you're able to let the two balance in the same spot, you're going to stop second guessing yourself. And the reason why is because when it comes to certain things, there is no changing, and there doesn't need to be. Just because you are on a journey of being the best you, okay, of self-development, self-analyzation, and getting yourself to a point where you stop people pleasing, that just means that there's part of you that's okay. That's part of you that's doing a good job. And there's part of you that's on the right track. There's part of you that thinks the way you're supposed to, does what you're supposed to. And it may be completely different than a family member or a friend. That's okay. It doesn't mean that you have to become a hermit or isolate yourself. It simply means it's okay to agree to disagree. So in accepting that there are some things about you that are okay, that builds your self-confidence. That causes you to stop the self-doubt. And that causes you to understand that there are certain parts of us that don't need to be changed. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And so the quality in anything versus the quantity, that definitely comes into play when it comes to our beliefs, our morals, our standards. And sometimes those are going to be questioned and second guessed by others, but stop second guessing yourself. And when you understand that there are things about you that are quality things, there are things that you do that don't need to be altered, then you're able to believe in yourself more. And when you're able to have that conversation with yourself and understand that it's okay for people to disagree with you, it's okay for them to have their own perception, then you're going to enhance your self-confidence. And it's important to understand the quality of any idea. But it's also okay to say, that's not what's going to work for me. And so let's go into the next year in understanding that you can trust yourself. And that means not only trusting yourself when it's time to make a change, but it's also trusting yourself when you know that it's okay to say no to an opposite thought. It's okay. Just like it's okay to be comfortable with something, and it's okay to be in a state of discomfort about something. It's also okay to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this, or I'm not going to do that. And this is what works for me. And you know what? That self-confidence that you have, that self-trust that you build into the new year, it's just as important as those times when you're humble. It's just as important as those times when you say, hey, this is what I need to change. This is how I need to do this. This is how I need to approach a situation, or this is no longer what we're going to do. I'm going to listen. That's a good idea. Let me get to work on that. It's just as important to trust yourself, trust your process, understand you, understand how vital it is for you to have a standing ovation for yourself. It's just as important. And so let's just keep in mind that on the path of self-development, sometimes it's okay to be okay. And it's always okay to keep the ideas you have. It's always okay to lessen the amount of friends we have. It's always okay to kind of stay in your lane and do those self-talk. And by understanding the quality of that, you understand that the quantity is what works for you in all of those. And the time you spend with yourself, the time you listen to yourself, versus the time you spend with others, other people's ideas, their perception, and the times that you spend with them in general. All of that, there needs to be a balance. And those work together to make a better you. And I've had to learn that over the years. But you know what? Through trial and error, there's that little voice in your head that tells you, you got this one right. Out of all you might have gotten wrong, this one's right. And you proceed on with your head up because of that. The next thing we're going to talk about is positive inner selfie. We also live in the age of selfies, Let me snap a picture. I think the millennials, of course, social media had a lot to do with this as well. If you didn't snap a picture, it didn't happen. Um, and a lot of times, you can kind of find yourself, strolling, and there's people who will take selfies more than others. And then there's people, that's just not their thing, and that's okay. But guess what? The inner selfie is so much more important than the external selfie. And let me tell you why. As we've discussed this evening, how our comfort and discomfort level, our quality and quantity levels, those all need to be balanced. Spending time alone is going to help you get the best inner selfie. And what you're doing here is you're focused on the self-confidence. See, whatever you have now as a person in your career, your family, your spiritual, your spiritual self, relationship with your higher power, whoever that is to you, and just your entire existence with other human beings. Wherever that is, you are only going to be effective in those areas if you take a positive look at yourself. And the first step to doing that is being able to spend time alone, being able to love you. The first person that you have to love spending time with the most is yourself. If you don't like your own company, there's some self-analyzation that needs to go on there. It's going to be so hard to be a pleasant person to be around, to enjoy other pleasant people, if you don't even like yourself. But you have to first spend enough time with yourself to get to know yourself. And that's going to go back to that balance we were talking about with the areas of comfort that we need to keep versus the areas of discomfort that are necessary for us to change what we need to change. And the same with quality versus quantity. You've got to love yourself before you start to extend yourself in any way, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It's so important. And then the next thing, when it comes to a positive inner selfie, stop people pleasing. And this is something that is going to have to be revisited. And the reason I say that is because a lot of us have the people pleasing issue because of the way we were raised or because of our experience. I am a recovering people pleaser. This even goes for individuals who we hold in high regard. This also goes back to that quality versus quantity balance that we talked about earlier. You've got to get to a point where you understand that it's okay for people to not be pleased. As long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're still staying on the path you need to be on to fulfill your purpose, then, there's going to be people that are not pleased with certain things. Some people are not going to understand. They'll try to discourage you. It's just the nature of the beast. I just don't feel that it's necessary to even spend too much time, even analyzing it. But it took me a while to get there. I'm there now. And there's so many things that you have to actually see about yourself, confidence, your self-trust, before you understand where the origin of people pleasing actually comes from. And a lot of it comes from lack of self-trust. And so in building that confidence along with the love and along with the trust, you're going to have to understand that pleasing people is not something that you can allow to run your life. It is a necessary balance that does exist when it comes to certain people. Our parents, as we've discussed before on the show, our supervisors, our mentors, our children, significant others. but you always want to have a balance there so that you won't go into the people pleasing zone. And every now and then you're going to need a tune up, but you will get to a point where it's less important what people think. They have their own lives, they have their own shortcomings, they have their own self-development that they need to be working on. And some don't realize it, and then others do. And sometimes it's not them, sometimes it's us. Sometimes we are such people pleasers that we put people on pedestals that they don't need to be on. Not that they're bad people, but that everybody has their cross to bear and everybody has their area in life that they need to be a little bit sharper on. Everybody has that. And in understanding that no matter how important another person is to you, the first person you need to please is God, yourself. And keeping in mind that if you're not good enough for you, you're not going to be good enough for anyone else. It's not a permanent, genuine, healthy basis. And so that's when you start to check yourself when it comes to people pleasing, because it can be something that starts to take over the complete picture of everything. And then with that positive inner selfie, stop trying to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. Nobody is walking around without flaws. Nobody is out here walking around with no doubt. Now, a lot of people mask it a lot better than others. And it's good to, love yourself, as you are, change what needs to be changed and accept the things that you can't change. But at the end of the day, stop trying to be perfect. Perfection does not exist. And so when you realize that and accept that you're still going to mess up, even though you're trying to do the best that you're supposed to do, and you're trying to be positive, you're still going to have times where the negative thinking creeps in. And you're still going to have times where you look back, you know what? I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have posted that. I shouldn't have did this. I shouldn't have did that. But you know what? It wouldn't be the first time, if we're being honest, and it's not going to be the last. So stop trying to be perfect, because it's never going to happen. And the next thing with the positive selfie, never speak badly about yourself. You want to be realistic. You want to admit your faults to yourself, your areas of improvement, but regularly speaking badly about yourself, I want you to look at it this way. Don't speak to yourself in any way that you wouldn't speak to another person. Don't say it in your head, although you're not saying it out loud. Don't even say it in your head. Anything that you wouldn't say to you, anything that you wouldn't say to another person, don't say it to you. And so that was something that I had to learn. We all make mistakes. We all have shortcomings. We all have things that we will continue to work on. It doesn't matter how far I've come. I'm still going to have things that I need to learn, things that I need to work on. It's just the nature of it. And by accepting that, I stopped speaking badly about myself. Some things, aren't necessarily the best things that have come up in your life, but you know what? It's who makes you you. And just like a quilt, every patch, every piece of fabric, every piece of thread, that's what makes the quilt. Stain or two, rip or two, what makes the quilt. And so stop speaking badly about yourself. And then the last thing that might be hard for some people to get, but it's really helped me, list things you love about yourself. Just like we make lists of goals we want to reach and things we need to change. Also remember the good things. Self-love is so, so important. It will take you to the next level. And what we have to remember about all of the topics that we spoke of tonight is In order to be the best you that you can be, you have to love who you are right now. The positive inner selfie is what's going to remind you that you're worth it. Wherever you are today, however you are today, whoever you are today, you've got to love that person in order to be better, in order to understand better and to work better. You've got to love who you are right now. So that positive inner selfie is probably the most important thing in doing so. And so I just want you guys to take these tips with you into next year. Take these tips with you for the remainder of this year and for years to come. They've helped me be who I am today. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Remember, remain humble, but love yourself. It's okay to love yourself. It's okay to be important. And it's vital in fulfilling your purpose and being the best you can be. So join me in the continued self-analyzation, self-development. Also join me in the self-love. Because for my next 40 years, I'm taking humility, I'm taking positivity, and I'm taking love, but I'm also taking self-love. Love you guys. See you next week.